I'm Bil Spaude.
Tod Spaude.
Bret Spaude.
Wanted to talk about how we got into the go-karting.
Yeah.
And back when I was probably, I don't know, 20, 21 years old, a group of us, husband and wives, would get together once a month, and the women would go to the movies and that, and the guys that play cards. And about half the time at night, we'd go up to the smart car track, and we'd go up there and race go-karts for an hour or something, and go back and play cards. And
What's a smart car track?
it's a go-kart track.
Oh, okay.
A rental go-kart track.
Concession track.
Concession cart like this, only it's, you know, it's just a little place.
Okay.
And anyway, the last time we was there, and I say the last time because the guy told us never to come back. I think we crashed every go-kart he had, so we decided that we wanted to keep doing it. So we all went out and bought some kind of a go-kart. Some of them was twin carburetor McCulloughs. I had a Clinton, and but we would take and go out. There was a place out away from home that was started like a industrial park, and it had roads in it. And so we went out there and started meet on Sunday and go out there and run. And we had all different, like I said, all different kinds of carts and different horsepower and everything. So we'd take and everybody would do laps, and then we'd time them, and then we'd try to set it up to where one guy might start 8 laps ahead of the other guy because of the, you know, how fast he could go. And it was close to a kennels where they had dogs and that, and this lady kept complaining about us making too much noise and her dogs would bark. So the sheriff come out one day and said, you know, let me, you know, get in the car and we'll go see if we can find another place for you. So we did.
Really?
Another industrial park. And we went and ran there for a while. And then I ended up going and buying a regular go-kart, brand new. And most of the guys sort of dropped off pretty quick, but there was 2 or 3 of us that continued to do it for a while. And then I continued and everybody else quit.
How long? So when was this, year-wise?
1963. And the new, I've got an article on that where one of the newspaper reporters come out there and took pictures and everything, and had wrote a big article about it. Thus, you know, we'd have a bunch of spectators out there watching it because there wasn't anything else to do on Sunday in 1963.
So, my own curiosity, and you guys probably know the answer to this, how long has karting been around like this?
Yeah, karting actually started about, I don't know,
59, 58.
58, 59.
Really? So you got going
Pretty early
in the stages, so there not a whole lot of karts to even be had out there.
No. It was different. It was totally, I mean, karting has come a long way, and it's been reinvented 2 or 3 times in a way, and, you know, but I don't think anybody had any more fun than what we did back then. It's all got to the point now to where it's, how you want to call it, everybody's running the same cart, or not so much the same cart, but the same engines. So it's more, you know, who's the better driver, who's the better setup. Back whenever we started, you know, you ground on the ports and everybody was, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. The people that run today, there's very few of them that build their own stuff and do their own thing.
Well, back then you didn't really have a choice, right? Because there wasn't much of a market. You had to build your own stuff.
Right, and there wasn't any kart shops. Todd started to build motors when he was 14, and I don't think that, other than a handful of times, that all during time that he raced, he built everything.
Okay.
We did a lot of our own development work, our own, chassis and.
Well, it was a time when you almost had to, I would imagine, to some degree.
It was
right?
starting getting more in production stuff at that.
Was there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was like in the 70s and early 80s. But like he said, there was a lot more work that could be done, or they were allowing a lot more different kind of works in the engines and so forth like that. So there was a lot more mechanics and tuners that would actually do more engine work and so forth back then.
Okay.
Now it's more of a spec type thing, a little bit more in its control, which they call like more stock engines that you still have rules around them, but they're controlled a little bit differently. More stuff is more, let's say, status quo for everybody.
Gotcha. And I think it makes some sense, right? Because if it's all about what you can do to the engine and speed up your car that way, and it's less about the driver, or is that something that you guys look at and go, well, all this regulation is something that started creating problems?
Well, it's like you said, it's all been innovative. It's kind of just grown into what it is now. It's each year it's always been easier for the new guy to come into karting, because in like we're saying, in earlier days, you had to put and build so much stuff on your own. Now you can buy so much stuff off the shelf and put it on, and once you assemble it together, you're pretty much even with everyone else, and then that just comes up to drivability and the mechanics of it.
Nice. So when was the first official race that you ran in?
I ran in.
Yeah.
Probably, I'm guessing that probably in '64, I went and bought a brand new go-kart just like this over in Cocoa Beach.
The blue one here.
A kart like sort of, probably pretty much just like that one. And I had never ran a competitive race, and I don't remember if we did something that day, but we went back over there and ran. Like I said, these other fellows that I ran with before had all sort of drifted away from it. But, I've been involved with it now for 60 years, straight through.
That's amazing.
Were you alive when he started? Was Todd alive when you started go-kart racing?
Yeah. Just at
Just-
that point.
We, born in '63. I started in '63, but not competitive racing for another year or so. But
When did you start traveling around for races?
we didn't, Bob Thompson and Stud Alderman and I we went to the Nationals in '67, went to Indianapolis and ran Enduro Nationals. That's, sort of the traveling around, started in probably '65 or '66. There wasn't a whole, we had races in Florida. Bob put on races all the time, so we had sprint races and enduro races. We ran at Lakeland Speedway, Auburndale, had a lot of street racing back then. But, we got more involved, I guess, probably whenever Todd started. He got old enough, he started when he was 8. His first race was a street race in Lakeland, and I wouldn't say he crashed, but he hit a curb and it flipped up on him, sort of on his side. And a couple of kids ran over and flipped the foot back over, and he took off, but he scratched his helmet. He was concerned about the scratch on his helmet more than anything.
Of course.
But, you know, until, you know, I make a joke out of it, but it's pretty much like it was. He raced when he was 8 years old, but he went out and rode around the track. And if it was a 10-lap race, he might get lapped 8 times. But he was
Back then, they had a lot of street races going
happy
on.
doing it
So what is it?
And
What is a street race?
It's, they
through the streets. of
close
town.
down the streets of some of the cities, and you know, there was a race organizer that put the races on, and you raced in the city.
No kidding.
In the streets, yeah. And there was 3 or 4 other permanent tracks, you know, Jacksonville, Clearwater, there was one in St. Petersburg, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale and so forth. But there was a lot of street racing going on back then, when insurance was different too. So, you know, you wouldn't be able to do any of that kind of stuff now as much as what it used to be, of course.
I don't know if you know anything about the Bayfront Center, but we ran around the Bayfront Center
In
down to St. Pete, through the parking lot and down I forget, Bay Street or whatever, right along the water.
Oh, wow.
We ran there 2 or 4 times. There's jackets and, you know, different things that we gave away as prizes, you know, back then. We got involved with the Police Athletic League and that, so they sponsored a lot of stuff and helped a lot. We was on TV to promote this stuff locally. But like you said, you know, he was a lot better at it than I was. I was not a closed track driver. I was as fast the second practice session as I was going to be. The street races, you only had 2 practice sessions. So him and I both pretty much dominated the street race stuff. I'd run 4 classes and he'd run 2 classes, and we usually went home with 6 first place trophies. But a closed track like this, I was lost, because
No kidding.
I was as fast right out of the box as I was going to be, you know, down the road. It didn't matter. So it's just that we ran, you know, we never were sprint racers. We've run enduro karts pretty much the whole time. In '86, they had the World Championships in Jacksonville, and that year we traveled all over in the sprint tracks and ran. It was direct drive, 135cc motor, and he ran all the tracks, trying to get ready for the World Championship. That's the only time we really focused on sprint tracks.
And campaigned in that area, yeah.
Okay.
Because when you normally did road racing, which the enduro racing that we were doing, it was just hard to schedule in everything, you know, both types of divisions. Because basically you have endurance racing, which they run on time, which is 45 minutes to an hour. Then you got sprint races where they run 2 or 3 heat races. And then you got dirt racing that they run qualifying and just a final. So there's different structures and different dates, and a lot of the stuff nowadays is all on top of each other. So even if you were going to try to run a couple of different divisions, it would be hard. And just the fact that a lot of the dates cross over. So that's why I said most of the stuff we were doing back then were running enduro racing.
Okay.
So we took a couple years off to run the sprint stuff because the World Championships was coming to Jacksonville, Florida. So we were doing that just to prepare for that.
Now, was that World Championship that you guys did, was that on like some sort of standard car track, or did they have
Yeah,
Was that-
Jacksonville, 103rd Street track in Jacksonville has been there for, gosh, it's been there
Since I
almost
started.
50 some years now.
And that was for cars, not necessarily
No,
carts.
it's a
Cars.
go-kart track.
It was built specifically for go-karts?
Yeah, the city still maintains that as a park.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's one of the few left in the country still doing it that way.
That has that age to it.
Mhm.
Wow, okay. So, you guys would race together for, at least did so for a while, dominated, and then you started taking over. How did that happen?
We started running more enduro racing, and he stopped because we were running so many classes. It was just hard to do so many of the classes for each weekend, and then he just decided just to help and do a lot of more of the mechanics and scoring and everything for us. And when we go to the nationals, we'd run up to 9 classes out of the 18 or 20 that they had to offer all the time.
So, to help somebody like me understand, I think I've got an understanding of classes. I've got a motocross background, so I've got some idea how that structures, but what would you say are the typical classes that you would be
So
involved
they would, we'd have 100cc classes, 135 classes, and then each of those classes would have weight divisions.
in? Okay.
So that's why you might have a 100cc class and it might have 3 weight divisions. We'd run all 3 weight divisions and then also run the different engine categories as well. So that's why we were able to run up to 9 like at a big national race like a Daytona.
All right, so you would have 3 separate carts for the different.
We'd have separate carts, yeah. And
Okay.
each of the cars would be different, and then all of a sudden, one would feel better than the other, so you pretty much change everything to get back on that one car all the time because it just felt that
And
car
when we would leave
was
home,
happier.
we had a red car, a white car, and a blue car. And this car's gonna run these classes, and we'd get to Daytona, and he would go out. After he went out in all 3 carts, he'd come in and say, "We're gonna run this one." So we would start changing stuff around because one cart, it might not be the same one. One cart would feel better that day, and so we would make it work.
So you'd swap out the engines.
Yeah, we'd swap out whatever we needed to do to get that car being the primary car.
So they ended up having same framing, all that stuff. It was really just about engines. And
Well, no, the chassis that we built, that we designed up and we together did it, but I mean, no, they all had a little bit different characteristics to them. So it made it different on each track. Sometimes there was primarily one car that did really well, and then the other 2 could float in every once in a while and take over.
I picked up on something there that you built. So you built these cars?
Most all the stuff that we did, and when we ran all the enduro stuff, we actually built them. Yeah.
Now, was that because you felt like it was the best way to go, or was it because there just wasn't that much out there to buy?
No, there was stuff to buy. We had bought stuff before, but then when we started running as many classes as we did, and we wanted to do some changing on the chassis, so forth, that's when we built 3 or 4 different designs of them to kind of get an understanding of which one would be better. And because of the different tracks and configurations, some were so much longer and some were real tight tracks. The different cars would, they'd run it. They perform differently and better on different places.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where we just, and when we build our own pipe, exhaust chambers and clutches, we do a lot more modification with the clutches and so forth. So we just did a lot of our own stuff that made it special, but it is an enormous amount of time to do it all.
I would imagine, yeah. This requires a certain level of devotion.
Yeah.
Is this ever something that somebody makes money at?
There are
Other than,
Yeah.
starting your own track and going down that, are there racers that make money? Did you guys make money? Were there purses that
No,
you
there
got?
was never purses when we were involved.
Yeah.
There's purses now in small, categories and so forth like that. But generally, this is a hobby, and it's the joy of doing it and not having to go out and buy a $30,000 to $100,000, $200,000 car to get a motorsports in your blood.
Gotcha. Okay. Excuse me. Can't get that tickle to stop. So you started at age 8.
Mhm.
When you were 8 years old, was it something that you just completely fell in love with and you immediately knew that this was something you wanted to do a lot? Or was it something you did because Dad was doing it and it was a way to?
I was just in the zone at that point, just riding. Like he said, I was not a front runner at that point at all. None of it really clicked to me until I started probably doing my own stuff. I did good at occasions at certain different tracks and nationals we would go to, but until I probably realized the amount of work and effort that I was putting into it, and I wanted to get something out of it. It didn't really click until then, probably with me. Otherwise, up to that point, I was just enjoying myself, unknowingly enjoying myself.
Well, I never pushed it on him.
He was never one that just, you got to do this and do that. It was always just whatever, and so that's how I worked it with Bret until the day that we finally left one of the dirt tracks one time, and he was like, well, how can we go faster? And I said, well, that's when, if you want to go faster, then we need to get a little bit more time together whenever we go to the track next time. It was him playing with his buddies and throwing football and everything else at the track until finally he decided he wanted to go faster too. That's when we sat down and got a little bit more serious with it. The same thing with what I was doing with him. There was no pressure that I think any one of us had on any of it. And once we were decided that we wanted to put more effort into it, we all did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys all kept track or have some idea how many of these championships or things that you've won over the years?
Not especially.
No?
I mean, there was at one point, I had most wins at Daytona, but now there's a fella that runs with us now that I still do, our shop still does engine work for him and his brother. And so now he's regained the Daytona title basically of the most wins.
So you're gonna have to come out of retirement.
That's
soon.
Randy folks. No, I don't think.
Well,
they're still doing very well on what he's doing, and
well, when Todd retired, we had known Randy and his family. It was a father and a mother and 2 boys. And I still went to the track, even though he wasn't running or anything. I still went all the time, a lot of them. And so one day I got a phone call from him, and he said, well, you're always at the track. He says, why don't you come and help me? And I said, can't do that. He said, why not? I said, your dad's got arrested.
because his dad was still helping him at the time, so he wanted to make sure that his dad didn't have a hard feeling. So,
Gotcha.
So,
Makes sense.
so that's when he started running for
Reggie called me and said, I'm ready to quit doing it. I mean, he was, 15, 20 years older than I was. Anyway, I started helping Randy, so for, 13 years or whatever, I traveled with him, did all his work and that with him. And then Bret came along. He was old enough to run. He ran like 4 years in the dirt before he was old enough to run, the big tracks. And so whenever he started on the big tracks, I sort of went off of Randy and helped Bret.
Okay.
But the deal behind us is Bret's first enduro race, first time at Daytona, and it was, I wanted to do a 3-generation, be on the same track at the same day. And we ended up, all 3 of us won. The following year, they put the go-kart in Daytona, USA. And then, 3 or 4 years ago, they closed down Daytona, USA. We thought they had taken the go-karts out
The museum side of it.
the
Yeah.
museum side. My daughter went to school with the boy that ended up being a photographer for 35 years at Daytona. So he got us in because we thought they had, you know, sort of disassembled that part, but they still had, when you go over there and rent, or they go take you around the track and that, they go back through the backside of what Daytona USA used to be, and the go-karts and that was still there.
Oh.
So we got in there and we took the pictures because we was starting the track here and wanted to put it up. And then 3 years ago, I guess it was, the guy called, Daytona gave the space that Daytona USA was in to the Motorsports Museum in Michigan, and they moved all that down to Daytona. And we got a phone call, I guess Raymond did at the shop, that they had some go-karts over there. They wanted to get rid of it, was over there. So Todd and I went over there, and they had the go-kart that was in there, but the plaque was gone and everything that, you know, said what it was. So the guy really didn't know, they was just motorsports thing, and Todd got to talking, and the guy told him, you know, what the significance of it was. And take it home, clean it up, and bring it back. So we did, and it's still over there now. It's in the new museum or whatever you want. I don't know what it's actually called, but it's a motorsports museum. So we've had a kart over at Daytona for 23 years, I guess. And whenever they reconfigured and put the tunnel underneath between 2 and 3, they had a ceremony where they, you know, ribbon cutting or whatever you want to call it. And they called us up, and I took Bret over there, and he got to drive. You know, they had all the different venues, motorcycles and that raced there, wanted to be represented. So we went over and represented the karting. Bret did.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, so Bret was, he had to be 12 to run Daytona. So he had just turned 12, so like 15 days, because we run there between Christmas and New Year's. So he didn't have any time to do any practicing at all on the car. So that was pretty much the first time out on that car. But we had worked 6 months prior to that to get a car ready for this division that we were talking about running in, which was a Briggs flatheads when they used to have a flathead engine. So like he said, he ran the juniors, I ran some of the senior classes, and he ran another senior class. And so we won all five, you know, all three of us won that weekend on the same style car, in 3 generations, which was pretty cool.
That is cool.
But one of the things on what he had, he didn't take it out for practice but once, and I kept telling him, I said, Jay, you need to, because he ran my car, I said, you need to take this out, because I said, it's pretty hard to handle, because we had it very, very loose of a car, so it would go fast. You know, I say loose, the car was just very, you know, dicey and antsy. And he's like, oh, I can take care of it, I can take care of it. Well, I was back at the tech area, because he had run his first and won one, so I was back at the tech area, and I had to run back up to the pit road, because he had already been out on one of his classes. I think we only got like 6 laps, because it was only a 20-minute race because of the fuel capacity of the engine itself.
Okay.
So I had run up to the pit road to find out what was going on, you know, where he was at in the field. And 2 guys, you know, first and second went by, and there was a big distance after that. And my buddy says, yeah, there's your dad. He's third, but he'll be in the lead next time. And I says, what? He says, yeah. He says he's 3 seconds faster than the other guys, and we were phenomenally fast. We had really worked hard on getting this whole stuff that much faster. But he had spun out. He had spun out first lap, and they had a back straightaway on him at Daytona, which is, you know, huge. And he chased them down in those 5 laps and won.
I never heard that part.
Yes.
Wow. That is awesome.
But it was we had built this chassis with this behind us, and it's still a Daytona, like you said, but we built a chassis just for this class, and trying to make, another evolution of what went on in karting. Because the cars that everybody was running was actually sprint karts and so forth, and they really weren't endurance racing karts.
Okay.
So with the rules and everything and the regulations you were allowed to do, you were allowed to build a car to a certain, specs, and so that's what we ended up doing. And so, like I said, 6 months prior, knowing that he wanted to run, we started getting all that ready and going. So the car and the package and the engine and everything else we did on it was just phenomenally better than what everybody else was running, and that's what made it so much dominant. So, and after that, he went on to win several, 2 or 3 years of championships in those classes too, as well.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Bret here in a minute. It seems like it just kept progressing, right? Like the talent gets handed down, and more wins start to happen. So the design on that car behind there, and I understand I haven't seen a whole lot of cars, but boy, it is so different. The body style and all that is so different than anything I've seen in my limited. So was that the normal look of the carts that were running at Daytona, or?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, we picked out the bodywork stuff that we didn't build the body itself, but we picked out one of the ones that we wanted to put on it, and then helped design the car around that. Yeah.
All right. So currently, is that still the
Yeah.
type, or do they have something that's more like what we were?
They're still running somewhat of what this is. A lot of the manufacturers, after 2 or 3 years, went ahead and copied the design of what we had done.
So why is that one so different?
It's narrower for the road race, so you go through the air a lot better on the big tracks, like Daytona, than what you would here at the concession.
Is the Daytona speed higher than it is here?
Yeah.
So what kind of
because
speeds
you
do you
got
guys
more
get
straightaway.
to at Daytona?
Well, on those cars here that we have behind us, I think the juniors got to 70 miles an hour, and then the seniors were 80. But we've gone. There's dual engines that have gone up over 160. There, and then there's some 250cc sprint stuff that's gone over that. Yeah.
Bret ran the dual engines at Daytona faster than the first 2 or 3 times that he ran a car at Daytona. It was faster than a go-kart.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine being that low to the ground and with that much open air around you and not like a major cage and all of that, and doing that kind of speed. That would probably freak me out a little. So how do you
get used to it?
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing.
You don't even notice it.
That helps me understand why you're able to stay on the banks and all that, because you're able to get those types of speeds. Because it just seemed like if you're not going fast enough around some of those banks, you're gonna just float down, right?
Not generally, no. It
No?
looks that way, but no. It's
No?
not.
But here again, whenever we ran this part over there, we ran as close to the grass as you could get.
Yeah, we basically ran on a flat apron because you wanted to get the less distance around the around than getting on the bank and putting more mileage, distance mileage on it.
That makes sense. Okay. So, no real clue or understanding how many championships you've got, but you start bringing Bret into the picture about when, and how did that start to evolve for Bret?
When you say that, I know he had at least 33 at Daytona.
33,
And I think
okay.
That was
Might have been up to
before.
38 or
I
39.
think that was before. That was Dale Earnhardt had 33 wins at Daytona in the the 75 lappers and stuff like that. And he had more than what Dale did. And then Bret only ran a limited time. He didn't run near as long as Todd did. I think you had at least 25 when you quit.
I think I'm at 24.
But
That's just at Daytona.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that he was playing football and at the races, and then started to notice that he was seeing an interest in this, and you start bringing him in. How did that start to unfold for you guys?
To go to the dirt track, you know, it's only 35 minutes south of here, so it was easy for him to start up. I think at 8 or 9 on the dirt track stuff, and kind of just, we did a couple, 3 or 4 years there. And then, like I said, once he got old enough that he could run the big track through the age, you had to be at least 12 to run all the big stuff. You know, once he got to that point, then he transitioned pretty much over to a lot more of the road race stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the first run for you at Daytona?
Would have been that 99 year.
Yeah.
Won
we
that.
did
So your first, so this is like your first time on
First.
Daytona,
Oh, yeah. First road race.
First road race, first time.
First everything.
Yeah.
and you end up winning.
I don't
Yeah.
know how, but
And his age, you gotta also understand, his age group was 12 to 15.
Right.
So he beat all the 15-year-olds as well.
And he had only been
At
12
12.
for,
15 days.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that is definitely in the blood, no doubt.
Well, and I
about
made
that.
sure, I told him, I said, you know, don't think that this is as easy as it is all the time.
25 wins later, he's like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude.
well,
Made it pretty easy.
the part of the story that you didn't tell about the kart being built was that you did spend a bunch of time beforehand, and it started at least, I think, in 98-ish, maybe early 99 at Charlotte, whenever Harold literally brought a frame to the track and you guys built that prototype kart at the track.
He's talking about Harold Wiggins at Wiggins Kart Shop in North Carolina.
Okay.
So the guy who actually made the kart, after you guys worked on it, designed it, he brought just a kart, just a frame, nothing on it, to the track, and then you guys built the kart at the track. And then the first time that you raced it, I think, if my memory serves me right, in a 20-minute race, you had put almost a minute gap on everybody in the first race that you had it. And from there, it was just
Yeah, I think we were 3 seconds a lap faster than,
Right.
3 to 5 seconds a lap faster.
That's
than
significant,
everybody,
right?
yeah.
That's a big deal.
It was,
and the other part of
it,
it
it
is
amazed us of how much better.
nobody knew you hadn't raced in years at
Right.
this point. You just stopped and were at the shop all the time doing all that stuff. So whenever they're at the track, and where we pitted was kind of like down at the end of the pit area, so that, you know, we weren't like in the middle of everything, but when he'd come off the track, he'd pull off the track and park real quick, because that's just where the pits were. We weren't doing anything weird or anything, it's just that's where our little area was. Well, he would go around and ask people
What the times
what
were.
the times were that you needed to be for that specific class, and they'd tell him, you know, it's
153 or
yeah,
something
whatever
like
the
that.
number is, and then but the guy would follow it up with, there's this guy in a blue suit and a white go-kart, we can't find him, but he's doing 49s. You know, he was
We
3
don't know
or
where
4
he's
seconds
at, we don't
quicker.
know what's going on, and I'm thinking,
You know, he's looking down, he's in a blue suit, and he's got a
they're
white
talking
white
go-kart.
about
car.
me, you know?
Yeah.
So I just walked back, I didn't say anything.
So they grid up and they go out, and the thing's just insanely quick. So, but that goes back to it just made it easier at the end of it, whenever it was all said and done, that there was something that actually worked versus taking something else and making it try to do something it wasn't supposed to do.
So in hearing about your transition, where you started with dirt and your first race was at Daytona, you're in this kart that's faster than anything else that's out there. It's your first time on the road, and you win it. That dirt experience, was that the major key for you in being able to transition so easy? How did that happen? That you just put me in the kart and I'm going to go win.
I really couldn't even tell you.
Well, he'd been at the racetrack since he was a baby anyway, so
Sure.
he had grown up on it all anyway, and he could, like he said, he potentially pretty much saw that what he was getting into had high potential anyway, so I think with that in general, he had good hopes that he should do well.
I mean,
I would hope.
I think I remember doing well at the dirt track. I mean, I think we won a couple local races and championships and stuff like that, but we never were, I don't think I ever did well at like the bigger dirt races, but
We really didn't go too much.
yeah.
Well, you know, Todd said, you know, Bret was 10 days old when he went to Daytona
Under the Works Bank, yeah.
first time.
10 days. Okay.
So he's been at the track since all his life, basically.
Yeah. This is all you know. This is like, whew, it's just in the blood.
I guess so.
Okay. So there's a Daytona history. Is there, clearly this is a name that people are going to know in the karting industry, without a doubt. Are there other tracks, are there other places that you guys raced consistently where you enjoyed it? What was your favorite place to do this? What was your least favorite?
You guys traveled all around, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, we traveled all over the United States.
Yeah, one year you guys went to 22 races.
Yeah.
We went 68,000 miles one year.
Wow.
Back then, if you won a class, you got to get up and speak for, I don't know, 2 minutes, thanking your sponsor and so forth. He won 4 classes. So he had 8 or 10 minutes. And during the year, driving 68,000 miles, he sat down to figure out how many pistons, how many gallons of gas, how many hours we spent on the road. And said that in the 8 minutes or 10 minutes he had.
Had a bunch of
This is what it
statistics.
takes to win.
Ah, that's amazing.
Wait, who, Bret or Todd?
Top, yeah. He was like, I don't know if I want.
Because I don't sound like someone's brother.
But when you have 68,000 miles to do nothing but ride, I mean, it's,
Yeah. I mean,
California.
we get home in the
Texas.
middle of the night and be ready to work Monday morning at 7, so
I took
we
them,
didn't miss a lick.
I've taken them almost directly to school
From a race.
from a race.
Wow. That's amazing. So what would be your favorite place to run?
I liked them all actually. I mean, Elkhart Lake was really fun. Road Atlanta was fun with the different elevations and so forth. Rockingham was really rough, but I liked it just because everybody else hated it. We went to Summit Point, we went to New Hampshire, we went to Willow Springs out there, Texas, Oklahoma. So we've been a lot of places, but I enjoyed them all.
I have to ask this just because of my own connection to the state. Was there ever any racing in Ohio that you guys did?
Mid-Ohio.
You went to Mid-Ohio?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up towards the Mansfield area.
Mhm.
Okay.
We were in Watkins Glen. We ran,
Long Beach Grand Prix.
What-
Remember Long
what's-
Beach Grand?
what's the Nelson Ledges?
Oh, Nelson's Ledges, yeah. Okay. And the reason I asked that, I told these guys is I had a friend in high school. His name was Durwood Wood, of all the names in the world they have. But his dad had a speed shop in Akron. And we called Durwood Derby. Nobody wanted to call him Durwood. But he lived above that speed shop. And the speed shop was all go-karts. It was all they did. And so this is the 80s. It's kind of weird for me, because I know that those guys were racing, they were doing a lot of stuff, and Derby was actually racing, but I don't know how much of that, because when we were together, he didn't really talk about it much. But
Generally didn't, because whenever you did, nobody really understood it at school whenever you were going through school. So you just,
Well, I had one of them whenever I was younger, a yard cart. They
yeah,
didn't understand that you went 100 mile an hour on an indoor track or something, But
well, I knew that he told us then that some of the karts they were doing 100 miles an hour, and I was just like, wow. So he would take us down to the shop and show off, it's after hours, and he's like, yeah, let's go down and take a look, we get some idea what's going on. I was like, okay, cool. But I don't know how big a name they were or how big deal it was at that point. That's why I brought it up. Because you guys ever heard of these guys?
They probably did a lot of sprint races, and there was a lot of sprint tracks there.
Oh, okay. And you guys were more in the endurance
Zero
side?
side, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And my daughter, Amy, she was 12 years old, bought her a camera. She started taking all the pictures. She wrote articles for the magazine from the time she was 12 years old.
No kidding.
And then she ran series for the karting organization. We had what they called Constructors Cup, where it was a lot of foreigners come over here and run. It was all direct driving out. She ran that whole thing, sold them fuel.
She
You
did
name
that
it,
for
she did
WK,
it.
one of the national organizations.
What does direct drive mean?
You just didn't have a clutch, so basically you had to push the car off, and it drove itself, or it just started itself.
Oh,
So
okay.
you could actually jump in and go. So if you spun out, you were done, unless you could get up and push it yourself again.
Really?
On the track, yeah. That was kind of what the Europeans used for so long. Now, in the last probably 10 years, they've changed over and got themselves clutches too, like us.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going to say, that was the next thing I was going to ask, is that even around anymore? All right. So you run your first race in Daytona, you win. Where does it go from there for you?
Well, I think we finished up that season and won a couple championships the first year. And in the juniors, there was only 3 classes you could run. There was the Briggs class, the Yamaha sit-up class, which is the same kart but with a different engine on it, and then the lay-down karts, like the rest of the enduro stuff would run. And I think we ran the enduro and the Briggs, and then the next year we ran the Sprinter. They got the 2-cycle kart and the laydown, and then for some reason we decided that we should run all 6, and we would run, basically have a light and a heavy for each type of kart, and that's all you could run as a junior. So it got to be where we were running 6 races again, 3 different karts throughout the weekend, and I think we did pretty well. I think we won 3 or 4 championships that way, and I never for some reason never really did phenomenally well in the laydown kart, which is whatever. But the sit-up karts did pretty well in those, and then just got old enough, and then moved up to the senior stuff. And when you move up, then you get a few more class options to run, and started running. I don't think we did tag stuff right off the bat. I don't think it was around just yet, but did the senior class stuff, and had some pretty mild success there for a while, and I think we did pretty well with that. Won a few more championships in the maybe we didn't in that class.
Well,
in
you did the tag.
adults, so.
You did the tag.
Yeah, and the tag stuff is probably where we really shine the most. You guys knew him before. Well, so Bob, he was a buddy of your guys' that you met through Walt years ago, and Bob went off and did life for a while, and then he decided he wanted to come back racing again. I don't even know how that came back, but he came back to the shop one day and saw what we were doing, and he wanted to go do it. So he bought the same stuff that we had, and we got to be pretty close.
So they were like a little team that went
Yeah.
out and ran 125, basically 125 water cooled.
Bob Varga. So it's a, like you said, a water cooled tag package. They call it tag. It's touch and go. Has an electric starter, a little battery on it, and you just push the button and it cranks it up.
Okay.
And away you go. So, and probably that's what really, if I said I left a mark anywhere for my little stint of senior classes. That's probably where I probably did the best at. But Bob and I would go. I mean, we had identical everything. We'd have the second helmet over there on the shelf, the red and black one.
Okay.
We had the exact helmet. The only thing different was it said Bob Varga, mine said Bret Spaude in little font. And that's the only thing different. And our gloves were the same, our shoes were the same, we had the same suits, the carts looked identical. And people would come up to us after like a practice or something and be like, "Man, I'm sorry, I kind of, whatever, or that was really good, And we'd look at him and just go, okay, it wasn't me, it was Bob. You couldn't tell us apart. The only thing different was the number on the side and that little name part. And we had so much fun doing that. And, they'd have 2 races a weekend for that class. And between Bob and I, they had 8 races in a year. We'd have 16 races in a season, and between Bob and I, we'd win 12 or 13 of them. And I got the better part of that. I got more than he did, but he'd always get me at different places. He'd be able to get me pretty good on something. But those were probably the most fun races I had. It's a 30-minute race.
That's repeated.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it was a 30-minute race, and there would be 30 of us, 40 of us in a class, and about halfway through there'd still be 10 or 15 of you in the lead group, and then coming to the checker flag. I think I won Daytona one time. I think I won, and I think 6th place was less than 1/10 of a second behind, which over the course of 6 people, that's not very much. So,
No.
but that's probably where I probably did the best was with all the tag stuff, and then we did that probably 3-4 years, probably beating up on those guys, and people would buy our carts, and we'd help them out. We kind of helped people along the way, and people would come and go, and some would start out really not good, and they'd get a little bit better, and they'd kind of get up there and kind of race through the bit. But yeah, I mean that's kind of where my karting stuff went.
So what got you into cars?
Before you go there, I was on the radio with them, on the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they don't always listen to the old guy. So we're at Mid-Ohio, and Bobby, before the race, I said, "Bobby, I said, you need to change your tires." No, they're fine, they're good. And I'm up, you've been to Mid-Ohio.
Yes.
Up on the top of the tower, you can see all the way down into down the corner down.
Yeah.
And so the first lap, they take off and they go down there, and I hear on the radio, I just ran off the track, and that was Bret. And Bobby said, "Yeah, I was following you. I did too." And that was probably the most, I don't know if you want to call it entertaining, but it came down. He was behind a friend of ours from St. Pete that he was trying to catch, and I always gave him whenever the other guy crossed the line, so you knew where you was at. The next time, if I said he's at the line, you knew if he was picking up or not. And he caught him down in there, what they call, I forget, something corner, coming back up the hill. And he caught him down there and passed him before him and the other boy got out of their go-kart and collapsed right there. That was it. They didn't move. They just sat there it had to be the most grueling race, because the one boy knew he was coming, and he was, Bobby never made it back because of the tires and that they were shot whenever he went out. But that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
A lot of fun talking to them, be able to talk to them and listen to them, because they just chatted the whole time. So go ahead and your
And Bob and I were never sprint kart drivers. Bob ran with you years before in the laydown stuff, before sprint racing was even a big thing on the road race side. And we never really did that. And we just kind of naturally fit into it on the road race side. It was pretty easy to do. But there was that money race that we did, which was a disaster in
It was
itself.
$10,000 to win
It was some insanely high,
in Gainesville. Florida.
some high dollar entry fee that paid out like $10,000 to win. And for some odd reason, we thought it would be a good idea to go do that. We're not even sure what. I mean, I guess just the allure of the race, I guess. But we got there and we
So
practiced.
Bob and
Yeah.
Bret teamed up together.
It was a 3-hour race, so you needed
So
2 people to do
You
it.
could
And
team up with a team.
we went out there and we practiced, and we were not that great, and we made a whole bunch of changes that night and came back the next day for the race. And
There was pit stops you could have and fuel stops because it was 3 hours, so there was a lot of,
yeah, I think you had to stop like every 30 minutes or something like
yeah,
that.
so.
So we had practiced a bunch of stuff at home that we thought really wasn't that important, but
Fuel stops, tire stops, take them a minute,
but it needed to be done. So we got there and we were horrible. And I think in the first 30 minutes we were a lap down.
Before that.
I said bye.
Before that, I think we were 15 minutes in and you guys were already a lap down. And the
we were
laps
not-
were they were over a minute a lap.
Yeah, we were not very good.
So we were horrible.
Yeah, we were not
And
sprint drivers.
we were looking at each other like, why did we even do this?
Well, somehow by the end of the 3 hours, we were 5 laps ahead or something.
Not somehow. We gained it up in the pits because you
Yeah.
guys were trash out on the track.
Yeah, we gained it in the pits, but not because of this guy.
We had
Randy
Randy Folks that
races.
we talked about earlier. There was one so many Daytonas. He actually just came down just because he wanted to be a part of the pit crew.
Oh,
So we all had guns. Back then, you just started coming out with the battery pack guns at that point that you could change. And there's 3 nuts on each wheel. So we had a guy on each wheel and then another guy doing the fuel. And so we actually did the stop the right way, as a NASCAR team would basically do
Right.
it.
Except for him.
He's saying, because I had to make sure I had my 3
Yeah,
done.
we're ready to go. and
We're all ready to go, and I'm still making sure that mine are tight because that's the way I am. But anyway, everybody else would come in and bring the cart on
Take
the
their
stand.
shirt
Oh,
off.
where's the fuel tank? And go get where's the funnel? You could hear these guys just floundering around, and we're just going, are you kidding me? And they're just burning down minutes getting fuel and tires and ours, and we were in and out in 30 some seconds or so.
wow.
So we gained it all in the pit stops for what those guys were doing. But by the time those guys were done, they were dragging. They couldn't hold their heads up.
The first day, because it was a
It was a
2-day
two-day
race,
race.
so each day was a race, a 3-hour race. So by the end of the first race, we're a mile ahead because of our superior driving. And, we're telling Bob, like 2 more laps because he was the guy that was finishing. Well, it was in January, I think. And it was, Gainesville, so it wasn't like it was tropical weather, but they were worried that they didn't have enough weight on the cart for Bob, so they dumped like 3 or 4 gallons of water on him before he went out to give him a little bit of extra weight in his suit.
Oh God.
Well, so you're going, 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, whatever it was, in January. And so he was freezing. And after an hour and a half of this, we'd tell him, 1 more lap. And he'd just come around, his head would fall over to the
He
side.
didn't have enough energy.
He'd just, lift his little finger up and just go, okay, just keep on going. Well, we ended up winning, so that was great. So that was a $10,000 day. And then the next day, we had to do it again. But we're pretty sure there was not an impact to be bought in Gainesville because everyone went out
Everybody
that
saw
night
what we did the day
and
before.
bought all the impact. So the second day it got a lot harder. We figured out a bunch more stuff on the cart, made the cart faster, and I think we were probably a top 5 cart speed wise on the second day after kind of figuring a couple of things out. And the motor blew up fairly early in the race, which is a bad deal. But again, we were kind of prepared for some of this
We
little
changed
stuff.
an engine out.
Yeah, we changed the motor in probably under a minute, which normally takes you quite a while, but we had a complete motor that was ready to go. And we ended up still getting third on the second day, but like I said, people figured out a lot more stuff after the first night whenever we were pretty bad. We were really slow. And I think Bob will admit the same thing, but it was pretty demoralizing to be at least a lap down, if not more, definitely more by the end of that 30 minutes, because I think I remember saying, what are we even doing?
But after the first stop, then we were like 3 laps ahead.
Yeah, we were
because-
so far ahead.
Because of the pit.
Yeah,
But
but
we always had fun.
That's the whole key, right?
It was just enjoyable to go and do it. And we just went for more of the experience. We didn't know what we were going to get out of it, of course.
the second race they had planned was at a real sprint track that was really tight, and that was going to be a problem. We were going to not do well there, but they eventually just canceled the whole thing. The guy, I guess, didn't follow through with the whole
Ran
plan.
out of money.
But from there, I mean, just that I don't remember what we explored a couple different options for some different car stuff. To look
We
at
rented some different rides to kind of see what kind of series you might want to run and what kind of cars you want to do.
we gravitated towards the longer races, and we spent.
More sedan stuff.
Yeah, did we do 1 or 2 years with Alan and those guys doing the BMW stuff?
Right, too.
I think we did 2 years, just kind of jumping in cars with other teams,
A
and
lot of them are endurance racing, 4 hours, 8 hours, 12-hour racing.
we found a team that we enjoyed. They had a couple different cars, and they did well. And we hooked up with them, did a couple years with them, won a couple endurance races with them, and then we did SCCA, we wanted to go do that, so we bought a Miata, which we quickly found out that even if you wanted to cheat, you're still only a mid-pack cheater on a cheating basis. You gotta really cheat, it seemed like, to do well, and we just weren't really about that, and so we always kind of ran mid-pack with that. It was okay, it was fine, it got us kind of where we wanted to, and then when we were hooked up with the guys up there doing the BMW stuff, the endurance races, they suggested that we go run this new class that they had started. It's called Touring 3. And so we kind of messed around with that and toyed around with the idea, and we found a Chevy Cobalt that Phoenix Performance up in Phoenixville was selling. And so we bought the car from them and started running. Did we run down here with it by ourselves, or did we keep it with Joe the whole time? No. Alan and those guys kept it in Washington, DC. And then we would fly up to the Northeast and do the races up there, just because the racing was a little bit more, there was a little bit more of them up there. So I think we decided to run up north. And they were also helping out with the prep and doing the travel, or getting the car to and from the track, since they were already going to those races. So we did well, and I think we had a couple little problems with it, and then that's kind of what led us over to meeting and understanding a little bit more about what Joe was doing at Phoenix, Joe Alkalani, and that's who we bought the car from, like I said. So we just kind of was doing well with it. We'd run it and have a couple problems with it. They'd help us fix it. We'd get it back running again, and eventually it ended up just being at Joe's all the time, and Joe would take it around a little, or no, I'm sorry, that didn't happen, did it? No, sorry, I'm getting my groups mixed up. And so Piper kept it for a while, and then we came back home, brought it down south with us after a season or two up there, and we ran it down here for a little bit, and then we took it to Kansas to the runoffs.
SCCA runoffs.
And that was the first time we ever went to a big SCCA race. You know, the regional stuff, they're big, but they're not, there's one race that they have a year that is the thing, and that's the runoffs. And that would have been 2008. Yeah. Never been to Topeka, Kansas before. Not really an ad for Topeka, Kansas, because there's really like nothing to do in Topeka, Kansas. And that was probably the longest 10 days of my life, because with the runoffs, the way the runoffs work with SCCA is you're on track one time a day, and it's like 20 minutes. And they've got so many classes that it's almost about a 30-hour gap between your runs. So you run one time on Monday at say 8 o'clock, and then Tuesday at 1 o'clock you go out again, and then Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and then you're back Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was like that for like 7 days. And it was just really long. And we qualified, I think, 4th or 5th, something like that. And again, Joe was there with his group of guys, and we were doing okay. There was another guy that had a car that was exactly like ours, another Cobalt.
Same color.
Same color, same everything.
Except his wasn't like.
Right. Well, yeah, that's besides the point. But so John Hiracy, who at the time, I don't know if he still worked, but he did work. He was kind of like the performance guy at GM. He was the guy that they helped engineer the CTSV, from what I understand, and he was like the guy that made things happen at GM on the racing side. And he kind of helped design the Cobalt a little bit, and he was there helping us out, and he gave us some tips and what to do, and it worked out, and we went out, and first time at the runoffs, we won the runoffs. So that was pretty cool, and I think we spent more time in tech than any other class that week. I think they had us there for like 30 hours. The guy that we beat, he had an illegal part on that I don't think he knew he did, but you know, you just go to a junkyard and get a motor out of a car that wrecked or whatever, and you put it in. Well, he had done that, but the motor wasn't the right motor, or he had an illegal part, something like that. So it took almost 30 hours for them to finally release our parts back to us that they were using as comparison parts.
Y'all was home.
Right. We flew home, so that I don't know what we were doing, but we flew back home. And so that was probably the first time we won anything car related that was, I mean, like I said, we'd won the regional races and stuff like that, but you're beating, 5 or 6 people. This was a class of 40, from across the whole country. This was the race to, do. This was a televised event, and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. And then fast forward another 6 or 7 months, and Joe, who we bought the car from, he operated the Grand Am team for Subaru, and they had an opening come up on their team. One of their drivers they had let him go, and they were looking for replacements. And because of our relationship with buying Joe's car and then having him help and then us winning, it kind of led all back to that they called and offered for us to come over to Daytona and do like a 2-day test, I think it was. We did like a 2-day test, and everything went pretty well, and I don't think I was terribly far off. It was quite a bit of a different driving car. It was probably the fastest car I'd driven at that point. And it just kind of went from there. And at that time, they were in what they called the Street Tuner class in the Continental Series, or Coney Challenge, I think it was even back then, Grand Am Coney Challenge. They had 2 classes, ST and GS. GS was the upper class, and ST was the lower class. I think they were running their sedans at that point, and they were switching over to the STI. and that was the first year they were going to run it. So when we jumped in with Andrew, Joe's son, we went straight up to the top of the class for that series and played there for a couple years.
Yeah, both guys did really well together as a team.
Right.
You know, both young guys, and Bret would always qualify the car. But what made it good for Bret was a lot of the tracks that they'd run on, he'd already run enduros for the karts. See? So there wasn't a lot of, you know, learning the track type of thing. It was just adjusting from a kart, of course, like you said, to a car. But I think it was in the second year you guys went to New Jersey and Bret put it on the pole of all the other guys who have been running for so long. So that was a good weekend for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the car was a small knife at a very large gunfight.
Because there was only one Subaru car, and the other teams had multiple Ford cars, Chevy cars, you know, Jeep.
We were a 4-cylinder turbo that was wound out to the max against the V8s and the V6s and stuff like that. So it took a while to get the car right. There was a lot of struggle, and I'll never forget the guys at Roush. They were running Mustangs, and we were in our Subaru, of course. We were at Watkins Glen. We never did well at Watkins Glen for whatever reason. I think we were changing our third motor for the weekend, that weekend, and the Roush guys came over to us and said, "You guys are by far the hardest working team per lap in this whole place." Because I think at that point we'd only made like 10 laps and we were on our third motor. And you know, it's not an easy thing to change out something like that. And they were, I mean, Watkins Glen was just
The car and all the components was phenomenal, but they just really didn't have the racing ability built into the car.
Something would always be the problem.
But only one car to break down all the time. You didn't have much.
Well, the other thing was a Subaru, it had to be Subaru. You know, our computer had to be Subaru, and it wasn't what we needed. And finally, they gave us the option, or gave us the permission to get the
Bosch equipment.
Bosch and put it in there, and then we was at least could race.
Right.
Up until then, every time it got up to 170 degrees or something, it just shut the damn thing down. You know, it was horrible. The first year and a half was
A lot of learning.
just a waste of time.
Subaru put a lot of effort and money into it, but
Oh, yeah.
the biggest thing was the cool thing was going to all the different tracks and all the people that own Subarus coming out, because it was, you know, it was one of the #1 cars of people buying the repeat car, you know, manufactured cars. So there was a lot of loyalty on the customer base, and Subaru saw that, and we saw that whenever we go. It was pretty cool to see all the Subaru car owners coming out and cheering us on. So,
We got to do, they sent me to a lot of different dealer meetings and stuff like that. It was a pretty cool experience to, you know, not everybody got to do that side of it, like an actual factory side of it. In our group, I kind of look at it as there's like 3-ish kind of tiers. There's the guys who are getting paid all the time. There's the guys who aren't paying much of anything or anything at all. And then there's the bottom group where they're paying to go do this in that series. And I think we got pretty lucky to get.
in with that group for sure.
We got in on the middle run, you know, fairly close, and you know we didn't have a lot of financial expense comparative to what the whole thing was. And then we got to do a lot of things that you didn't normally get to do. The dealer meetings were fun. You know, we did
Manufacturer shows.
Yeah,
promotions,
we
stuff like that.
you know,
Did
Subaru's,
commercial?
did commercial for Subaru at one point. There was the rally stuff, you know, they're real big into rally cars. So there'd be a couple of times we'd go to New Jersey where they're based out of, and both the road race guys would come in and the rally guys would come in. So we got to hang out with guys like Dave Mira and Dave Higgins and stuff like that. And those guys would take us out in their rally cars and we'd go, you know, be the second seat in a rally car, and then the same thing, we'd go take them out in our car, and each of us would be like, I can't believe you're doing what you did, you know, based off of just what it's supposed to do. So, you know, we got to do a lot of fun stuff like that just a lot of people didn't get that opportunity, but
The rally
it
stuff
just-
looks like it'd be a blast.
yeah, I mean, it just, all these things are kind of like, we didn't do anything specific to like make it happen. It just, we happened to buy the right car, the right time, win the right race, get the right help from the right guy, and then the guy who lost his seat just happened to be at the same time we were able to do something. So it just kind of worked out, just kind of happened.
Okay. So now, any competing going on now?
Well,
Or is
I don't
everything
anymore.
everything in the two businesses?
Right, well, Brett and Rebecca started a concession cart here facility. And, so they've been operating that now for how long, guys?
8 years.
8 years now? So
September
they've been
15.
doing that. The other side of the interstate, we still have our race shop that we sell online stuff for all the karting needs for all the divisions, dirt, oval, asphalt, road course, you know, in karting. And, yeah, Dad fills in and kind of just watches over both of us and make sure if we got something we need to fix or build or whatever, he's right there doing that with us. And we still run, we still got a race team that runs enduros. We got one this weekend in Savannah, so we'll be going up to that. And there's a sprint race at Charlotte, so I'm actually going to try to hit Charlotte and Savannah the same weekend. And Brett also runs a sprint series. I run a dirt series in the state. And his is more of a southeast type thing, because he also tags along with a national program that actually is running in Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend.
Oh.
So he's a spin-off of that, of a South group. But other than that, he runs a fourth Saturday event karting here at the Bushnell Motorsports Park. Plus, he's got motorcycles and other stuff going all the time here besides the concession carts every day.
Right.